Welcome to Conversations with B'nai B'rith International. I'm CEO Dan Mariaschin. Thank you for joining us today. If you like what you hear today, make sure you never miss a program by subscribing to the B'nai B'rith YouTube channel and liking us on Facebook. And be sure to visit our website, b'naibrith.org, to learn more about our important work. First organized in 2004, the European Association for the Preservation and Promotion of Jewish Culture and Heritage, or AEPJ, is a network that brings together public and private Jewish organizations, government agencies, NGOs, tourism groups, and Jewish community federations from all across Europe. The association aims both to help develop Jewish cultural and heritage projects and to strengthen Europeans' cultural identity and understanding of their own history, in keeping with the values of human rights, cultural diversity, and intercultural dialogue. One such project is the annual European Day of Jewish Culture, first organized in 2000, in which Jewish and non-Jewish heritage groups hold events like concerts, conferences, guided tours, and more across Europe. The group's European Roots of Jewish Heritage, which promotes cultural tourism to European Jewish sites and education on European and Jewish history, was awarded the certification of Cultural Route of the Council of Europe. The association is also involved in the European Union's efforts against anti-Semitism. It's designated as part of Networks Overcoming Anti-Semitism, or NOA, a project of the European Union that brings together major European Jewish organizations to help evaluate and develop EU member states' policies to combat anti-Semitism. Well, joining me today are François Moyse, president of AEPJ, and Victor Sorenssen, director of AEPJ. Mr. Moyse has been with the association since its beginning and is the former director of B'nai B'rith Europe, as well as a former chairperson of the European Union of Jewish Students and a former president of the Jewish community of Luxembourg. Mr. Sorenssen has been the director of AEPJ since 2017. He was formerly the director of the Jewish community of Barcelona and founder of Mosaica, a Jewish cultural platform, the first in Barcelona, that has helped develop many educational projects. I'll be speaking with him today on AEPJ's important work, its history and connections with B'nai B'rith, new projects, and much more. François, Victor, thank you for joining me today. We're delighted to have you with us.
Hello.
Thanks to you, Dan.
Well, let's start off. Take us back to 2004 and tell us about the original concept for the European Association for the Preservation and Promotion of Jewish Culture. Who were the individuals and groups who created it? And were there any events in Europe or elsewhere that inspired the decision to create the organization? François.
Yes, maybe I can start. Indeed, it started in Alsace, in northeastern France, where the local B'nai B'rith Lodge actually decided to liaise with the local tourist agency to open these Jewish sites to the public. And during 3 years, they just decided you have to do something about this wonderful Jewish heritage there, which is crumbling, which is in danger. And by opening these old Jewish cemeteries, by showing these synagogues in many villages around Alsace, they saw how people were interested, Jewish, but also non-Jewish people from the towns and villages, but all across Alsace. And I remember myself being there. There were 130 events during the summer. It was decided that it must be stopped, that the Jewish community would sell a synagogue that is no longer in use. This is local heritage, this is history, this is Jewish culture, and it has to be preserved. And so After these 3 years, they liaised with Germany, Baden-Württemberg, and did a second event with them. It worked as well. And as you said, in 1999, I joined B'nai B'rith Europe as the first director, and I worked together with Mrs. Claude Bloch from Strasbourg, who is one of the big initiators of this program. And we decided together to launch this idea together with other organizations, Jewish and non-Jewish alike. As you said, for example, in Spain, the Red de Juderías de España, this route of Jewish heritage in Spain. And we had 17 countries in Europe participating, and we saw that it was the same success. We created one day in September where together in 17 countries, people would go and visit these sites, learning about the Jewish community, and it was a tremendous success. And so, as you said, we decided to continue this program, and it has been going on for 20 years under the name of European Day of Jewish Culture first. And now in very often up to 30 countries in Europe, you have what we now call the European Day of Jewish Culture and Heritage. And this European Day moved into European Days because sometimes the programs go on for several weeks. And so whatever the language, whatever the region, whatever the people organizing it, it is one period with a common topic, a common poster, and a common message. Come and see the history and the heritage of the Jews in Europe.
Well, so much has happened in the world since the founding of the organization. And we could ask, how have these events over the last 17 years shaped the association? You've been involved in many important projects since 2004. What have the criteria been, and how have they changed over the years? I think that one of the important elements in combating anti-Semitism is education. And education takes many different forms. It can be in the classroom, it can be outside the classroom, and it can be learning about our history and our cultural heritage. So, Victor, how have events kind of shaped your program? And how have, over the years, I know you've been with the organization over the last 4 years, how have you seen this evolve?
Well, Dan, I would say that in this last decade, we are seeing that it's an incredible opportunity for communities and cities to use Jewish heritage to become an entry point for public understanding of the past, but also the continuous and evolution of Jewishness, as still articulated, in the present. We understand heritage or Jewish heritage as a verb, something that it provide action. Heritage that is disjoined from ongoing life has limited fun. Heritage involves creation and transformation. Is about adding new ideas to all ideas. And we can see that in these last years, all the projects are evolving and growing because they understand that this is an opportunity for intercultural dialogue, to celebrate diversity. So I think that, for example, in terms of numbers, the European Days of Jewish Culture, nowadays is celebrated in 30 European countries with an audience of around 200,000 people. So I think that we are feeling in some way an opportunity, but also a need. And the need is to present Jewish history and Jewish heritage as an integral part of European history. I think that we are moving towards this new model in terms of heritage management.
Well, tell me how it actually works. I mean, how do you choose each year? It's gone, as François said, it's gone from European Day to European Days. You have many more countries involved. How do you select the country and the place for these days? I mean, there's so much Jewish history across Europe. How do you do that? And then how do you promote all of the events and activities?
Okay, so yeah.
Go ahead, Victor.
Maybe I start and then François follow me. Well, let's say about how it looks, the kitchen of the AEPJ where we cook these kinds of projects. This is an open festival, so we invite all kind of institutions to participate. As you were saying at the beginning, from Jewish communities to public bodies. From there, what we are trying to do is to coordinate this effort and to create frameworks for participation for all the different coordinators all around Europe. So every 2 years, we organize a European coordinators meeting where we evaluate the work that has been done, but also we look to the future. We define the central themes for the next editions of the festival. Also, we count with a partnership in these last 4 years of the National Library of Israel, that it's providing different resources and content that actually are an incredible added value for the institutions that are participating. So what we are trying to do is to strengthen this network. We believe that a network is something that goes beyond different institutions working together. We understand a network as a community of reflection, of thinking. So I will say that it's a collective effort, and our role here is to facilitate these conversations, these dialogues, and also the promotion at the European level of the initiative.
François, tell us about how you choose your next place to celebrate and to create events around a particular place.
Right. This is coming every day where we just decide together what is the opportunity of the moment. We were, for example, just before the pandemic in Clermont-Ferrand in France, southern France. Why? Because they have a synagogue which was completely renovated and in an excellent way, fantastic. And so they invited us to open the European Days of Jewish Culture there in France. And we had the son of the late president of France, Valéry Giscard d'Estaing, who died not so long ago, who is the mayor there, who was there to welcome us. And so that was an opportunity, for example, to go there. We had places far away from, let's say, more known places in Western Europe. There was an opportunity to go to Georgia in the Caucasus a couple of years ago. And we have been invited there, but by our partner, which is called Israeli House there. And we were welcomed in the parliament of Georgia, the national parliament of Georgia, by the vice president of the parliament. And we had a tremendous meeting and an incredible welcome in Georgia, for example. And maybe to look a little bit in the future, this year we'll do it in Luxembourg, the seat of the association. Why? Because for the first time, we'll have a plaque put in the governmental quarter of Luxembourg with the logo of AEPJ and the Council of Europe, with which we are working closely together, and we might talk about this later. And this plaque will be there where the first synagogue stood in 1819, so 200 years ago. And we will have the national and local authorities there, and also the Council of Europe, to inaugurate this plaque. So you see that there are many places around Europe. The only thing we have to do is to make sure that we can have our members join this activity and select the place where we can go, because we have many opportunities, and that's absolutely great.
So in that connection, Victor, your European Roots of Jewish Heritage, that program has been certified, as we said, as a cultural root of the Council of Europe. Talk to us more about the project and how it promotes European and Jewish heritage and history, and what are some of the highlights of the route?
So, as you were saying, Dan, our roots connect Europe from Portugal to Azerbaijan. The European Route of Jewish Heritage, certified by the Council of Europe, that means that we are participating together with other cultural routes, with working on a different thematic heritage. Our route includes 17 countries, and we develop work in the field of research, heritage, contemporary culture and art, and cultural tourism. Our aim is to represent a window to discover the history and the Jewish presence in Europe. And we are trying to work with our partners, the one that are developing the different routes, where we can find national routes or regional routes or even thematic routes, for example, the shtetl routes. What we are trying to do is to work on the experience of the visitor when traveling and visiting those places. We are talking about the experience of the local or maybe a visitor that come from abroad. And what we are trying to do is to move towards this new heritage management model. We want to talk about experiences, about co-creation, about active participation of the visitors in those places.
Let me ask you, when you do this, I mean, as part of the program, you mentioned, François, the plaque at the synagogue. Is placing markers and plaques part of this process, so that even though you may have the day featured one year and it's in this city or that country, when people go back 5 years later to see a site, do you also promote the affixing of these plaques to important places?
Well,
go ahead, François.
Yes, we've had some fixing of plaques before, but not generally as let's say as a first goal. But this is an important moment for the place. You know, for example, we had one in Pfaffenhofen in Alsace, which is one of the oldest synagogues of the 18th century in Alsace. We had one put in Lithuania in one of the wooden synagogues still left there, which is amazing. And we had one, and you were there, Dan. We put one in Venice, in Italy, in the ghetto, the former ghetto, in the museum, Jewish Museum of Venice. And that was also an important moment. So this putting a plaque is already something. But let's say that the challenge that we have is exactly to move from a European Day of Jewish culture to these European roots of Jewish culture, Jewish heritage. What does that mean? It means that while we created this program to animate the place, to make sure the synagogue would be upheld, that it would be taken care of, or the Jewish cemetery, it's not enough to promote the event. We want to make sure that this place is being put on the map of tourism, of cultural heritage of this region, whatever the country it is. And therefore, we are moving to a route where permanently throughout the year, we know that visitors can come and have a look either at the building which still stands there or at the place where there was Jewish heritage. And this is, for example, the case in Spain, where you had obviously towns before 1492 when the Jews were expelled. So we support these efforts to show that there was Jewish heritage there. And finally, what we are doing, and this is a big topic, is now we are promoting apps also on the mobile phones to make sure that people come and can virtually have a look, for example, at what happened before there, what stood there before. And so that's the challenge, to make sure that this Jewish heritage is always remembered and always on the map of tourism and culture.
François, you mentioned the Council of Europe. How does it actually provide support and contribute to your group in the work that you do?
Well, it is very important. The Council of Europe is this institution which includes actually, I think, 46 countries, so all the countries of Europe. As Victor mentioned it, there are a number of other roots, whether religious, whether thematic. Now, the root of Jewish heritage is considered as a very important one there, because it shows that the Jewish presence in Europe has been there for so long, and it's been a cultural, a historical, a religious contribution to the shaping of European society. And therefore, we are very happy to have not only the support, but also to work in coordination with this European institution, just to promote these ideas, which are so important in Europe to fight extremism, to be able to get people to learn what they don't know about the Jewish people. And the Council of Europe, as you know very well, Dan, is an institution which is actually very involved in culture, in, I would say, everything that is not political as such, promoting tourism, culture, promoting understanding, education, etc. And therefore, because it's one of the core values of democracy, which is promoted by the Council of Europe, we are really fully in place. And it's important to have this bigger dimension to show that Jewish culture and heritage is more than about these words. It's about understanding why the Jews have been and are still important in Europe.
Well, Victor, the photography and the imagery on your website is really terrific. Are you able to show us a few examples and tell us what we're looking at?
Sure. Yeah, you can see my screen. So as I was trying to explain before, we try to use our website as a window to present our different projects and initiatives. So that's why we feature in the beginning European Days and the European Roots. And just aside, the Roots Incubator, because as François was saying, our role here is to help develop those institutions that are working in the promotion of Jewish heritage to increase and improve their work, facilitate their connections to the European scope. So what we are going to find here, it's different EU funding projects where we are participating, such as the NOAA project that you were mentioning, Parallel Traces, that it's a EU-funded project where we are trying to connect contemporary art, audiovisual art in this case, and Jewish heritage in different European cities like Belgrade, Girona, Wrocław, maybe cities that are not the first one that we think about in terms of Jewish heritage in Europe, but that actually have a very important or played a very important role in Jewish history in Europe. Also, what we can find is different we are featuring different activities and promoting different activities that with the aim of reinforcing these initiatives. For example, here I can see Delphine Yahweh, that is the project manager of the Route of Jewish Heritage in the northern part of France, or Akvile, the project manager of the European Route of Jewish Heritage in Lithuania, or here news about the European Days of Jewish Culture of this year with the central theme of dialogue. Here the idea it will be to promote dialogue. We understand that there's this need, especially in Europe nowadays, and also to use these frames to go beyond the old notion of heritage, that it's something just about the past, just for specialists. No, we think that heritage implies everyone, Jews and non-Jews. So we are going to try to go beyond the borders.
What's the website that folks can go to if they wish to see more and open up all that you have there?
jewishheritage.org. If they write in Google Jewish Heritage, they will be directly linked with our website then.
Simple.
With one H in the middle, you have to really emphasize.
What about restoration projects? And we know that there's so many thousands of cemeteries, synagogues. I know that after the fall of communism, 1989 in Europe, and then the fall of the Soviet Union a couple of years later, 1991, we discovered how many synagogues, community buildings that there were throughout Europe that were in a terrible state of disrepair. Does the organization get involved in promoting restoration projects? Francois?
No, our goal is to coordinate activities to promote Jewish heritage in order for local and regional institutions and administration to make sure that they preserve this Jewish heritage. You must understand that it's absolutely impossible from a central point in Europe to get involved technically in projects which are in thousands of places all over Europe. But by doing what we are doing, we shed a light on the importance of this Jewish heritage, and we circulate news also. And we have other organizations now and activities that are being promoted within Jewish heritage. And so there is a trend to say, oh, if that is happening in Prague, so we should do it also in our country, somewhere else in Europe. You know, that it's about getting the understanding how important it is to restore synagogues or Jewish cemeteries. And so there are a number of websites now, a number of initiatives, even now supported financially by the European Union, that help to restore Jewish cemeteries. But as you said, and I was there as well, there are so many tens of thousands of Jewish cemeteries alone in Europe where there are no Jewish communities anymore or very few Jews, that this is a big effort. And I think that by now people understand, as I said in the beginning, that this is not only local Jewish heritage, this is actually European heritage, European history for the local people, for the regional institutions, and for the countries themselves.
Yeah, you know, it is really very pervasive. I remember visiting in Lithuania my mother's shtetl, and on the outskirts, and this was only a shtetl of 50 Jewish families, there was a small cemetery, and there were only just a few stones remaining. Those stones, most of them have been taken out and used for construction purposes and other purposes, but there was a small cemetery, and ultimately we worked together with a member of the Lithuanian parliament to have a marker at least put there. There's so much work that needs to be done. We have time for just a couple more questions, and I want to get to them because they're important. Victor, how are you dealing with life in the virtual age? Because going through Europe and visiting sites and attending events and festivals and so forth is a very much in-person experience. Over the last 14 months, how have you handled that?
Well, that was one of the main challenges for our association. How to use or how to navigate through the uncertain waters of the pandemic. Obviously, what we are trying to promote, and actually we are involved in one project that focuses especially on that, is on how to develop virtual experiences on Jewish heritage sites. The question is always the same, and here what we are trying to find out is how the cultural tourism world is going to look like in the medium and long term. We foreseen that the personal experience, it will remain for sure, but we are moving towards a scenario where technology and the digital world, it will be very, very present and could be a very important complement and asset for Jewish heritage projects. So with our partners and our different managers of the roots, we are working with different main institutions in the field. For example, Europeana, that is the European Digital Library, and other Jewish heritage institutions to make and join forces to make a cooperative effort to tackle this challenge together.
And finally, I want to go back to an issue that I raised in the introduction today. One very important aspect of AEPJ's mission is its participation in the European Union's Networks Overcoming Anti-Semitism, or NOA, as we said, in which European Jewish organizations help evaluate and develop policies to combat anti-Semitism for EU members. Now, what does your work for the NOA entail, and how do recipients use that information? François, I'd like you to answer, but again, I'll go back to what we had said earlier, that the important work that you do in educating, again, is one of the elements that is needed when we look at an overall campaign. There are a lot of different things that need to be done when we're combating anti-Semitism, but certainly, again, education about who we are and the history of the Jewish presence in Europe and the European continent is an extremely important part of it. So why don't you take that one?
Yes, NOAA is first. It's the first time where really we have an overall European project funded by the European Union with several major Jewish organizations. And it's also the first time we really engage in the topic of anti-Semitism. Why? Because we always have used Jewish heritage to show that there is not only the negative side of what happened in Europe, meaning the Holocaust, obviously, meaning anti-Semitism, anti-Semitic prejudice against the Jews. So Jewish heritage is a positive message and is a historical message to show that Jews have, as I said, brought something to Europe and not only be the victims. Now, we accepted to be part of this overall project because we see that we need to use the topic of Jewish heritage as a tool of education, as you said, and to work with other organizations also, because we were put there on the map, in the middle of the map, as an organization to say what we are doing is helping to wipe out the prejudice that the Jews have to suffer. And therefore, we value this as a very, very important step forward, that we are now part of mainstream Jewish organizations in Europe, and that the fight against anti-Semitism is not only a negative fight, but it must be a positive one through education.
Victor, anything you'd like to add to it?
Well, no, I can agree more with François in this sense. Just as an example, the last Eurobarometer, that is the European survey on perceptions of anti-Semitism, showed that 70% of the European population state that they are not informed at all about Jewish history, customs, traditions, etc., etc. So I think that shows that anti-Semitism needs to be tackled in a very holistic approach, with education as a main pillar. There's so much work to do, and I think that we are trying to move forward to that path, understanding Jewish heritage and Jewish culture as an integral part of European culture and heritage. And I'm sure that through education and through explaining, as François was saying, all the richness, the presence of Judaism in Europe could help to change mentalities, prejudices, and stereotypes.
Well, thank you both for being on today and speaking with us about AEPJ and the great work it's done and continues to do in Europe. So pleased and proud that B'nai B'rith has been a part of this. that between our good friend Francois and Claude Bloch and others that we have really from the beginning, B'nai B'rith, been supportive of the work that you do. So it's been a real pleasure having you today, and I hope we'll have a chance to come back at another point and talk about some of the other work that you do throughout Europe.
It was a pleasure. Thank you, Dan, for this
Thank
session.
you very much, Dan.
Well, our thanks to Francois and Victor for being on today and speaking with us about the European Association for the Preservation and Promotion of Jewish Culture and Heritage. And thank you for tuning into this conversation with B'nai B'rith. Well, if you enjoyed this discussion, make sure you never miss a program by subscribing to the B'nai B'rith YouTube channel, liking us on Facebook, and following us on Twitter. And be sure to visit our website, bnaibrith.org, to learn more about our important work. See you again soon, everyone. Take care.